I wonder if people ever actually think about the things they say before they say them. Especially when you're responding to somebody who you're debating or arguing with. And especially when it comes to literally life or death topics. Because a common sentiment you'll see in this space when you say that having children overall is an immoral choice, living in this system of slavery, mental, spiritual, economic, you name it. The most big brain response you'll get to that is, why don't you end it then? If you hate it so much. And I'd like to think a lot of these people who say this are usually Americans. Because as we all know, like, the American education system failed. But a lot of people failed the American education system as well. But it's everywhere. It's everywhere, right? But if you don't like it here, get out. If you don't like it here, get out. If you don't like it here, get out. That's all well and good. But what if people actually said, yeah, I'm going to get out permanently? The same people feigning concern or trying to call your bluff, as if there's even a bluff to be called. Like, you're given a life sentence, you're given a death sentence as soon as you're born. And it's funny how the deaths of children are so tragic to us, and yet we are one of the weakest species when we're born. If you see, like, if you watch like these wildlife shows and there's like an antelope or even a giraffe or, a rhino, something, all of these animals, as soon as they're born, they have to be up and walking within like 5 to 10 minutes or something. Like within a very, very short, like within the day, basically. If they're not able to be up and walking, they're dead. They're prey. That's all they are. Human beings, like, we would take months, literally, like, that's like the fastest that an infant will learn how to walk. Months, right? Usually takes about at least a year and a half, before they're able to walk and learn. The rest of the time, they're just being carried. That's how we start this life. And don't think it doesn't do anything to our psychology. We developed our mating strategies specifically to provide the best benefits to the population. Somehow, it made sense for a fetus to stay 9 months in the mother. And in that 9 months, even the mother is completely vulnerable, especially the further along she gets on her pregnancy. We had to depend on protection from threats from animals, from other humans, of course. All through that. And yet, if that's how you're born, how do you think the rest of your life is going to be? Because especially in the last 150 years, this post-industrial world that we live in, we're just on a conveyor belt. You're born, you go to kindergarten, maybe go to some after-school sport, Then you go to primary school, and then middle school maybe, or high school. Then you turn 18, you go to college. Then you get a job. Then you get married. Then you have your kids. They do the same shit till you're old and you can't even wipe your own ass. Then they're there to wipe your ass for you and put you in the ground. I mean, that's really the conveyor belt we've been in for thousands of years. But in the last 150 years, it's become much more pronounced. And that's assuming you go like the typical route of the average citizen, right? Assuming you don't end up in prison, assuming you don't end up like with chronic illness or injury in and out of hospitals and stuff like that, which inevitably happens. And through that, all that, even in the best case scenarios, what does it amount to? Because if we can say that, like, if put religion aside and we say we define our own meaning, and if antinatalists have come to the conclusion that life has no meaning, is that not them defining meaning for themselves? You know? Is that not still defining your, like, if I decide that life has no meaning, that's how I define life. Life has no end goal. There's no grand plan. There's no Messiah coming to save everybody. Because they've been saying that shit for fucking thousands of years across different cultures in different ways. Oh, we're waiting for the chosen one. Well, the chosen ones, they'll set us free. Free to do what? Free to be... Freedom, in the religious sense, is just the freedom to be an eternal slave. An eternal, mindless slave. You have to do everything by the book, whatever special book you adhere to. You have to follow all those rules just to get into your desired afterlife. And once you get there, you can't even leave, can you? Because if you can sin in that afterlife, if you can commit transgressions in that afterlife and be kicked out of it, what was the point? That just means this life really isn't as consequential as most religious people pretend it is. So if we can come to the conclusion that we decide meaning for ourselves, and further still we can define that there is no end goal to this species, why is it so hard for people to accept the concept of physician-assisted suicide? For example, you know, let's take the trolls at their word and say, you know, why not go do it then? You know, why not go, you know, get the rope? Go ahead. Because oftentimes when people say things like that, as soon as you point out that somebody close to them right now is contemplating that same thought, their tone changes. Their tone completely changes. As soon as you tell them, what I'm saying is what somebody close to you can't say. What then? Because we can imagine hypothetically a perfect world and hypothetical situations and then ask yourself, you know, would you do this if you were there? Like, it's all well and good. It just serves to differ from the original argument. You know, if there was no war, disease, or greed or any of this stuff, would you still have kids? I don't know. I can't answer that because our world doesn't exist and it never will, for being honest. What we're chasing now is a simulation of our own simulation. That's what social media is. That's what this artificial intelligence and augmented reality is. Nature is getting to the point where it's learning itself so much that it's trying to separate, to divide itself from itself, if that makes sense. Because what is a social media profile? You can be anyone you can literally be whoever the fuck you want to be on social media. You can curate the most amazing profile of the most amazing person you could ever come up with, and you can just say that it's you. And until people go digging through, well, you can live the life you always wanted, right? In Japan, they already have artificial companions. I don't know if I can say sex dolls. I guess I can just say sex dolls, but they're not really even sex dolls. They're like literally, they're literally personal waifus. They already have them. You look at a place of like Japan, whose economy has been the envy of pretty much every other economy on the planet for decades now. And yet most people there aren't even getting married anymore. They're not even having sex anymore. They're going towards a demographic crisis because people don't want to have anything to do with society. They don't care. They'd rather just get their food. I can't remember what it was called. I think they're called hikikomori. Right? Like hermits, essentially, living in the city. I watched a documentary about it, and it was depressing. You have people who the only person they will talk to that entire day is the food delivery guy. That's the only kind of human contact they'll get. They'll get their food delivered. They'll go back and chill on the computer, play maybe video games or something, and they just won't go outside at all. And it's a growing minority in the country. And yet they have all the development that every other country is chasing. Like, oh yeah, if you just had this, we'd be ahead. We'd be the envy of the world. Yet they have one of the highest youth suicide rates in the world. Because they are working themselves to the bone for honor and pride. That's all it is. A 20-something-year-old person can just end their lives because the stress of overachieving. It's an overachieving society. The stress of an overachieving society is just not worth the pain. And I truly, truly feel so sorry for such people. In a way, that madness has been liberated from them, but at the same time, it was such a pointless pain that they had to go through. And their families have to go through. And the funny thing is, we've been indoctrinated to the point where somebody's saying, I'm not going to push this on to my future children. That person is selfish and making excuses and is insecure, is narcissistic, is depressing. But I don't think that at all. I think that's somebody who is so thoughtful, so selfless to take that burden onto themselves and refuse to let it pass on to a next victim. In some ways, it is a sacrifice, because if you wanted kids, if you love kids, if you love like playing with your nieces and nephews, or, maybe your younger brothers and younger sisters, and you love that experience, and you'd be like, you'd want to have your own child to help grow and to help, it's a deeply selfish desire. But it's even more selfless to for you to know that it's your conviction to never bring them here, because they're not missing much. If you could talk to your unborn children and just tell them that, yo, you're not missing much here, I think that would be the best thing any human being could do to another one, even a potential human being. There's no need to perpetuate the madness, to propagate the madness. There is no need. Even the phrase does life have meaning? Why do we never ask, do we ever ask that of any other concept that we come across? Does hard work have meaning? Does life have, does exercise have meaning? No, we rather ask, do these things have value? Does life have value? Human life? Sure, yes. But to what end? And who is it valuable to? We have value as human beings because we conceive of it. But remember that we live in a very indifferent, very brutal universe. This planet literally tries to kill us at any point. Earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, droughts, floods, famines, all kinds of insects. The mosquito is the number one killer of humanity. It is the number one population control for humanity. This earth is incredibly brutal, but because we've built walls and air conditioning, and we've built all kinds of different technologies and weaponry, we have given ourselves some sense of illusion. It's all right if we give ourselves the sense of illusion. I personally don't think it's right to have children perpetuate this illusion, because they are innocent. And if you still see the innocence in yourself, would you not have love for somebody to preserve that for you? I think this was a more well thought out video than my last one. But I'll definitely be touching on this topic more often, absolutely. So thanks for listening. Keep commenting, keep subscribing, keep liking, I'm definitely this channel is going to stay active. I can guarantee you that.